Thank you. 4 billion tons of waste produced every single year. That's the number. 80% of electricity on planet Earth generated using fossil fuels. The volume of waste on planet Earth is going up the whole time. Greenhouse gases are accumulating. Global warming is with us and it's fast-tracking. And global population is increasing too. Because in 2030, there will be about 9.5 billion people living on planet Earth. And out of the 9.5 billion inhabitants, we'll have about 40% who will be living in water-stressed areas. So you'll say, perhaps, there is an issue here. Yes, there is a difficulty. How can we reconcile all this? Yes, but I would say that probably the problem is part of the solution. It's clear that we cannot continue consuming materials, resources like we have in the past. Therefore, we are at the dawn of a revolution. This revolution will be industrial and environmental. It will be local and global. It will be individual, collective, and collaborative. There is one thing that is sure and certain, is that this revolution is the resource revolution. Because I'm absolutely convinced that we cannot continue extracting, mining, consuming, throwing away, where I think, on the contrary, we should be trying to preserve, trying to recover, reuse, and sustain. That is what it's all about. That's the resource revolution. We have to go from a linear economy to a circular economy. As I was saying a minute ago, it's clear that we have to come to terms with a new reality and at the same time new constraints. Constraints of a finite world. So the revolution we've got to invent must be a revolution which will be circular, concrete, and collaborative. Collaborative. That means that we, as citizens, we as companies, we as public authorities have to work together so as to try to come up with solutions together. It must be concrete, tangible. That means that the solutions we'll find must be basic, down to earth, pragmatic, practicable, simple. And also it must be circular, this revolution. No doubt we'll have to disconnect the creation of wealth from consumption of raw materials, that is. I'm quite convinced that we've got to invent secondary raw materials. I think also that we've got to put a price on materials. It could, for example, be the carbon price. In any case, if we wish to preserve and recover and reuse and sustain resources, we are going to have to find solutions for the future. And I'll give you a few examples of what solutions we might find. What about recovery, one of the three key pillars in all of this? We've got to recover and reuse resources. Water, for example. Take the case of water. SUEZ Environment is familiar with water recovery and reuse. It's one of our core businesses. Water is something I'm very familiar with myself. I started my career in the water business. So we've got to reuse, recover water. This is a fragile natural resource. It's scarce, but it's vital. of course. It's one of the essentials of life. And given the scarcity of water, we find an excellent example here of the general problems to do with the scarcity of our natural resources, because we've got to manage the scarcity in terms of quality and in terms of quantity. So it's a good example of scarce resources in general. And we must manage it properly no matter what the circumstances are, no matter what the challenges are or the projects we have in hand. So I'd like to illustrate what I'm saying by talking about a project that I like particularly myself. It's a project we're involved in a country where we have quite an important footprint. I'm talking about Jordan. Jordan, which is a country which is partly desert, 6 million inhabitants, a country where the population has considerably increased because of the conflicts going on. You see where it is on the map, of course, in Palestine, Iraq, Syria, and so on. There are conflicts around Jordan. So, as I say, it's semi-desert. It's a country where available resource in terms of water per capita, it's 145 cubic meters of water per year per capita. So it's considered there's a water stress once you get below 1,000 or 800 cubic meters per annum per capita. So the Jordanian government asked us to help it out in supplying all of its population with water. You see here a picture of the city of Amman. It's 2/3 of the population of Jordan, by the way, in the city. It's 1,200 meters altitude, and we embarked on 2 projects there. I'll talk about them. For water supply. The first one consisted of using saline water sources by the Dead Sea, treat, that is desalinate the water, and bring the water to Amman up 1,200 meters altitude. Don't forget that the Dead Sea is at -400, so we had to bring it up 1,600 meters, and bring water to districts which prior to that had no water. And the second major project we have been involved in to support the Jordanian government consisted of setting up a large pipe that we now manage, 325 kilometers long, bringing water from the border between Saudi Arabia and Jordan. This is groundwater, fossil groundwater, pumped up and brought up towards the capital, towards Amman. These are 2 major actions we've undertaken so as to guarantee water supply to the city of Amman. Another project that's very interesting that I'd like to talk about that we've been involved in is the reuse of wastewater. In a country where there is no water available or not much, it's essential to reuse wastewater for farming applications, for agricultural purposes, and also to supply water to the dams which are downstream of the city of Amman. This project consisted of building a plant called As Amra. It's a huge plant for wastewater treatment, treating all of the effluent from the city of Amman. And one of the characteristics of it is that it's totally standalone in terms of energy. In terms of energy, in a country that hasn't got energy, quite simply thanks to the production of biogas in our plant. And that gas is then used to generate energy, to generate power. It produces energy because through its geographical location, we can turbine through the effluent and generate power, and that makes it a standalone entity. And additionally, the sewage sludges that are dried generate energy for neighboring villages. And that is a rather impressive example, I think, of what one can do when one embraces the circular economy in the context of scarce resources. This was just the example of water. But in order to succeed in this transformation and pick up this gauntlet, we've got, obviously, to use technology. We've got to do research and innovation. And that's one of the strengths also of SUEZ Environment. Now, of course, we're not involved just in water. We're also involved in waste management. And we shouldn't forget that the world of natural resources, as we said earlier, is a world where those resources are depleting. So we've got to manage those scarce natural resources as best possible and optimize their uses at the same time. That's highly important. But I think it's just as important to try to recover resources that are contained in our waste. And 4 billion metric tons of waste produced every single year, that, after all, is a huge source of resources.
You may be thinking that we haven't really invented the recycling of waste, because it does go way back. If you consider our parents and grandparents, those were times when the things they no longer wanted to keep, or the waste, was recovered. There were these rag merchants of the past. In our modern-day world, where the population is growing significantly, one of the challenges that we have to face up to is the challenge of the industrialization of all these products and processes. It's absolutely necessary in order to move on to an industrial scale. Let me give you a few examples from the field of plastics. There's the bottle-to-bottle development, and there's the plastic-to-fuel development. Those are two developments that I'm particularly proud of, but I'd like to come back to plastics, strictly speaking, and the way in which they are produced and processed. In Europe, roughly 60 million tons of plastic are produced. Roughly 25 million tons are processed and 25% are recycled. Take a look at this photograph. You can understand the simple message I'm trying to convey. 60 million tons of plastic waste equates with 2 meters of plastic waste covering the whole surface area of the city of Paris. When you reuse plastic, you consume 80 to 90% less energy than when you produce plastic from scratch. Therefore, I think it's very important that we try to collect and recycle this plastic, which is why we initiated 2 major measures recently. SUEZ Environnement created a plastic lab, which is called the Plast Lab. This is a laboratory where we try to analyze, characterize, understand the ins and outs of the plastic we collect, and we try to find the solutions that will enable our clients to reuse that plastic. Another interesting example is the bottle-to-bottle, whereby plastic bottles are manufactured from used plastic bottles, and there's plastic-to-fuel as well. We have a unit in Bristol in the UK which produces gas oil that you can use in your car, and that is made from plastic. So with 1 kilogram of plastic, you can produce 1 liter of gas oil. All this to say that the recycling of plastic is of consequential merit. And therefore, it is possible to build, it is possible to produce, it is possible to manufacture new products using resources from waste. When you say that, you need to also say that a group like SUEZ Environment is changing businesses. We used to be water distributors. We used to be waste collectors. And little by little, we are becoming resource managers. resources used to be abundant in the past. They are scarcer today, and moving forward, they will become more and more valuable. Therefore, we have no alternative. We must take part in this resource revolution. And not only that, we must shape that resource revolution. As you know, our group has a long-standing historical background, but there's one thing that's quite fascinating in all this, in that our group took part in all the major modern revolutions of our societies. We were at the heart of the revolution of hygiene in the 19th century. We were at the heart of the welfare revolution in the 20th century. And I believe that in the 21st century, we are going to be at the heart of the resource revolution society. As I often say, our businesses are changing and they are converging, which is why we cannot, and we are no longer, be water distributors who are just asked to supply good quality water to citizens. Our assignment, our mission, is to protect a resource that's becoming scarcer and scarcer. I'm talking about water, the resources of which must be protected, but the multiple usage of water also has to be appropriately managed. By the same token, in the waste business, we are no longer waste collectors. We are material suppliers. We supply secondary raw materials like wood, paper, ferrous, non-ferrous metals, plastics that I just mentioned a short moment ago. And we also supply energy, electric energy, steam energy, biogas, solid substitution fuel. But these new businesses are such that the company must be both local and global. We have to be industrial as well as cross-functional. Therefore, we must conduct our historical businesses with the same human touch, with the same grasp of the human dimension, with the same grasp of the local dimension. But at the same time, we must give our organization this will to become global and unified. Our competitors are global in nature. Most of our suppliers are international. Resources are global. Therefore, SUEZ Environment must become a global organization, and that is why yesterday we would work under the banners of Lyonnaise des Eaux, Agbar, De Grémont, CITA. And today, we are converging. We are bringing together all these brands into a single brand. And this single brand is the symbolic expression of SUEZ Environment's will to anticipate and shape the resource revolution.
We are at the dawn of the resource revolution.
Dawn of the resource revolution.
Dawn of the resource revolution. The revolution starts today.
The revolution starts here.
The revolution starts with you.
The revolution
Will be circular.
The revolution will be
Concrete. The revolution will be
collaborative.
collaborative.
Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Are you ready? And since every revolution
begins at home,
All SUEZ environment
companies are now one.
SUEZ Environnement, ready for the resource revolution.
Je dois avouer que je le trouve très beau.
I must say I find it beautiful, to tell you the truth.
S'il y a une chose dont je suis sûr dans cette révolution de la ressource,
There's one thing I'm certain about when it comes to this
c'est qu'elle est
resource
absolument
revolution,
nécessaire
is
pour
that it's
l'humanité,
absolutely necessary for
et qu'en même temps,
humankind. And at the
elle est
same
une
time,
formidable
it's
opportunité.
an astounding opportunity for our organization.
Comme vous le savez,
As you know,
cette année, à la fin de cette année,
at the end of this
le monde
year,
entier sera à Paris.
the whole world will be in
Le monde
Paris.
entier va discuter
The whole world
de l'évolution
is
du climat.
going to discuss the evolution of the climate.
J'espère,
And
je
I
pense,
do hope
que des décisions seront prises
that
qui
decisions
permettront de
will be
limiter
made in order to
l'augmentation de la température à l'horizon
minimize
2100 à 2 degrés.
global warming
Mais quelle que soit la force des décisions que
degrees.
les États prendront,
by 2
je suis
degrees.
aussi
But whatever
convaincu qu'ils ne pourront prendre que
2
des
degrees
décisions
by 2100. But of
peut-être
course,
même imprécises.
I'm convinced that although decisions may be strong, they may not be enough.
De se fédérer
Therefore, we, companies, must
pour impulser.
bring our forces together in order to move this resource revolution forward. I'm deeply
que si nous
convinced
savons protéger les ressources,
that we need to protect
nous savons
resources.
valoriser nos déchets,
I'm deeply convinced that we have to make the most of our
nous saurons
waste.
pérenniser
And if we are able to do that,
la révolution
we
de la
shall
ressource.
make the resource revolution sustainable.
Notre histoire, nos métiers,
Our history,
nos savoir-faire,
our businesses, our know-how,
tout nous pousse
everything
à être un acteur.
is pushing us forward to become a strong player in this upcoming revolution. Thank you.